Hey guys, welcome back to Trek on the Tube, and welcome back to yet another Star Trek review and Easter eggs video. Today we're talking Lower Decks, Season 1, Episode 3, Temporal Edict. As usual, first my thoughts and opinions, and then all of the Easter eggs and references I could find to previous iterations of Star Trek. Spoilers. I don't say it every time, but still, spoilers, and that's about it. Temporal Edict. Here we go. What did I think? Well, put simply, it is yet another solid entry for the show. There's actually a lot of people I know, both from online and from, life outside the internet, real life, that are saying this is their favorite episode so far. I will admit that that's not the case for me. It's actually the one I like the least out of the first 3 episodes, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Quite the contrary. As I said before, it is still a solid entry. I mean, honestly, I couldn't say that any of these small-scale, self-contained fun episodes have been objectively better or worse than the others. They really are all great in their own way. Rating them and ranking them at this point is really all about taste. Anyway, Temporal Edict did not deal in time travel, which is what I think everyone was assuming. This was the biggest bait and switch in Star Trek history. I mean, we got Klingons, we got crystals, and we got the goddamn episode title was called Temporal Edict. Everything was set up and everything was in place to make you believe we were going to deal with time travel. But that didn't happen. It didn't happen. Hooray! Instead, the episode delivered a classic original series style away mission, an action-packed attack on the ship, some nice character development as well as valuable lessons about teamwork, and the whole thing came surprisingly packaged in some very timely commentary about productivity in the workplace. Awesome. I especially appreciated the next generation feel to the moral of the story, and as usual, the snappy, expeditive delivery gave the episode room to cram so much in those short 23 minutes. So yes, it was a solid, non-time travel episode. For some reason though, I just felt less engaged as I did watching the previous 2. Sometimes this is because first time viewing always gives us a lot to take in, but I mean this time I felt the same way the other times I watched it as well, so there we are. Story-wise, the episode gave us 2 main plots, one on the ship, the other on the planet's surface. I honestly couldn't tell you which one is the actual main plot, or the A-plot as we call it, because I feel like both of them shared the screen time and focus equally. I also couldn't tell you which one I liked the best. Both were fun, both had me smiling throughout the episode. It's just that for some reason, I think they could have both been fine-tuned just a little. Interestingly, this is one of those episodes I had more fun talking about after the fact with my friends than I actually had when I was watching it. Oh god, it sounds like I'm bashing the damn episode when I gave it a 7 out of 10 on Starfleet Boy. I'm ridiculous. I liked the episode. Anyway, let's just move away from the plot for a minute and start throwing praise at this thing, like real praise. As usual, the animation is flawless. We know that by now, but let's talk a little about the lighting and designs. The alien designs, the ship designs, etc. Alright, the aliens. They were unique and fun. I would dare say a new style for Star Trek, but their aesthetics did stick well with their overall personality, and even though the size differences between some of the members of the species were over-exaggerated for comedic effect, it does seem like they could be easily recreated in live action. So yeah, I like them. But what about those ships? Oh, I loved them. They were so awesome, so different from anything we've ever seen in the franchise. I mean, I guess I could kinda compare them to the Baul vessels in Discovery Season 2, but that's a stretch. I also got an Ice Age 5 vibe for some reason. I don't know why. It would be too long to explain. It involves crystals and spaceships and nuts. Whatever. I loved the way the crystals from their culture were incorporated into the design and how those little triangular ships used to board the Cerritos didn't just pop out of nowhere. They were actually drawn into the motherships from the get-go. And then of course this entire alien culture is based around crystals, as we mentioned, which is an interesting concept in itself. We may not be on the Enterprise, but we are still getting strange new worlds, new life, and new civilizations, and who couldn't be happy about that? Alright, lighting. Oh yes, we have to talk about the lighting. Now what I mean by the lighting is, for example, when Mariner and Ransom find themselves in the cell. You've got this ray of sunlight shining through the window, bathing Ransom's face with a sparkle of shine, and simply put, it's beautiful to behold. No jokes. And it even goes further than that. The absolutely mad people behind this show took the time to animate dust particles floating around in the sun rays in order to simulate the reality of the environment. I mean, who does that? How insane must one be to take the time to do such a thing? The attention to detail is baffling, which brings me to my point. I know that it may not seem important or even necessary to do all this, and I guess it's not. These kind of details wouldn't affect the storytelling in any way if they were missing, but they do contribute to delivering a visually appealing show. Even if it's not something that everyone is going to notice or be able to pinpoint, it's one of those details that works on a subconscious level, right? The lighting on Lower Decks is like the bass line in a song. A lot of people won't even realize it's there, but it is contributing a lot to their enjoyment of said song. Now, yes, for the purpose of this video, I used the Mariner and Ransom cell example specifically, but, you know, just generally speaking, so often in Lower Decks is it lit and done so well. Anyway, the voice acting is also, as usual, great. The music was noticeably good this time around. From the epic main theme variants during the final showdown and the original series homage on the planet's surface. Pacing-wise, even if everything happens really fast, nothing ever feels rushed. Both plots have time to grow, develop, and then conclude naturally, more so than in episode 1, where suddenly the Doctor had the solution because, well, the episode needed to end. So yeah, the pacing was also very good. And I guess that's it. Boimler saved the day, which didn't bother me at all, especially considering our Captain Freeman is one strange individual. She actually resembles her daughter much more than she probably thinks. Funny thing is, she's not the perfect captain. She's actually quite the opposite. She's throwing pads at the view screen, overcompensating minor issues, etc, etc. You know, it makes sense. She's commanding the Cerritos. Just saying. Some stray observations to finish this off would have to include the use of the phasers to remove the graffiti. I don't think we've ever seen them used in this way, but I like the idea they can do that, and holy shit, do I love Shax. The way he just falls asleep on the console, he slams those alien guys into a pile, the way he breaks Boimler's violin, the captain says you're too loud. I love him. I love him so much. Alright, solid episode. The general consensus seems to be that it's the best so far. I don't agree at this moment, but maybe in 3 years' time I will. I don't know. All I can say is Lower Decks is delivering quality episodes that is slowly creating the canvas that is the show, and I can't wait to see what comes next. Alright. Easter eggs and references. This time starting with everything mentioned, not seen. Everything referenced in the dialogue. In Ransom's first officer's log, he mentions Cardassia Prime. This is the Cardassian homeworld. The Cardassians were an antagonistic species mostly seen in Deep Space Nine. Ransom also mentions a short list of terrible things that happened to him on previous away missions before getting into the shuttle. Two of the things he talks about include a horned gorilla, which is a reference to the original series creature Mugato. The other thing he mentions is sentient tar, which is a reference to Armus, a creature from the Next Generation. Mariner references Captain Kirk and his classic shenanigans from the original series. Our four protagonists at some point start bashing Delta Shift, which would seem to imply the ship functions on a 4-shift rotation, Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta. This is most likely a reference to Captain Jellicoe and the time he tried to implement this system in the Next Generation. Finally, the biggest tie into previous Star Trek in this episode is, well, basically the entire plot, buffer time. In one episode of the Next Generation, Geordi gets to meet Scotty from the original series. Scotty was a well-known miracle worker chief engineer of the original Enterprise. Among the many things he was remembered for, one of them was always getting things done early. Now, Geordi spends most of his time fanboying over the Legend's accomplishments until Scotty explains one of his little secrets. He always gave himself more time than he needed. If the captain asked how long it would take to do a certain task and it would take, say, 2 hours, then Scotty would reply an estimated 3, thus giving him extra time to complete the task, or it simply made him look great when he did finish it in the actual 2 hours it would take. Geordi naturally was shocked by this, but here in Lower Decks, we learn that this buffer time people keep giving themselves is an actual tradition in Starfleet. There's no way of saying if this actually originated with Scotty or if he simply learned this when he was a Lower Decker, but yeah. The other funny thing worth mentioning is the actual name, buffer time, used for the first time here in Lower Decks, might actually be one of the most deepest and layered Easter eggs I have ever seen. You see, Scotty in the episode of The Next Generation was stuck in the pattern buffer of the transporter for 75 years before being saved. Pattern buffer, buffer time. Considering it was Scotty that first talked about this secret technique and he got stuck in the pattern buffer, that's maybe where Mike McMahon got the name from. We did also get a Enterprise name drop by the captain, but at this point it seems kind of ridiculous to mention every time the Enterprise is mentioned. Anyway, moving on to visual references. Boimler is awarded a plaque, very much in the style of those seen in The Next Generation. At the very beginning of the episode, Mariner starts making loud musical noises, and to illustrate how intense the bass is, the captain's mug shakes around on her armrest. This could be a reference to Picard's cup in First Contact, which was also being moved around by loud music, but it could also be a reference to Sulu's cup in The Undiscovered Country. The planet the away team goes to is reminiscent of Delphi Ardu 4 because of the giant crystal formations coming out of the ground. Ransom does his entire fight on the planet's surface with two hands clasped together. This is a reference mainly to Captain Kirk and what once could have been called a unique fighting style, but at this point I think Kirk Fu has become a widespread technique in Star Trek. The whole fight isn't just a visual Easter egg though, because the music played in the background, as we said earlier, is actually not far off from music featured in fight scenes during the original series, which transitions us perfectly into yet another visual and musical reference. Boimler singing along as he does his purging, purging reminds us all of Data searching for life forms.
Ooh, I love purging. I purge you, I purge you, I purge you, I purge you, I purge, 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 purge. And a puff and an urge, and a puff and an urge. Ooh, I love purging.
I just love scanning for life forms. Life forms. You tiny little life forms. You precious little life forms. Where are you?
Another musical reference is Boimler in the turbolift. He can be heard humming the Next Generation / motion picture theme. We finish all this off by talking about that one scene that depicts the faraway future. For starters, there's a child Borg in the class, which is interesting to say the least. Boimler is shown with a Great Bird of the Galaxy on his arm. Great Bird of the Galaxy was the nickname given to Star Trek's creator Gene Roddenberry by one of his staff. The only other time we've ever seen him depicted in Star Trek is in the Next Generation episode The Naked Now. On one of the screens could be seen a parrot with Gene Roddenberry's head wearing a Starfleet uniform. Moving back to the classroom and the students for just a second, this could potentially be an Easter egg to Star Trek Enterprise. The classroom kind of resembles the outdoor classroom Hoshi has in the series' pilot. But some people have also pointed out that it could be a reference to Serenity, the Firefly movie, and the classroom that we see there. The last thing to mention in this far future scene is Miles O'Brien. The joke is no one ever really saw him as the most important officer in Starfleet because he never really saved the galaxy or fixed the multiverse or even got a movie appearance. But as Mike McMahon explained in a recent interview, Miles O'Brien on screen went from being nothing more than a glorified red shirt, just some background guy beaming people up and down from a planet, to an actual Starfleet professor. You know, on screen we've seen him get married, have children, develop friendships, climb rank, become a main character. Miles O'Brien is the original Lower Decker that made it big, and I guess it simply is fitting to have him be in a Lower Decks episode. Also, him in front of the console is a reference to the online comic strip Miles at Work. Funny thing is, this episode of Lower Decks made a whole thing about Mariner and her sleeves. Miles O'Brien also rolled up his sleeves. Now I know this isn't technically an Easter egg, but I do want to mention it nonetheless. When this episode was released in the US and in Canada, there was no text to be seen on the big red clock. But sometime during the 12 hours following the release, the graphic was updated on the CBS All Access version to actually have 1 week later written. As it stands, Canada still doesn't have the new version. It's not important per se, but I thought it was worth pointing out. Alright, that's it. Well, I mean, that's it for Star Trek references. There are also references to things that are not Star Trek. The fight scene between Ransom and the big green brute who apparently likes to read is most definitely a reference to the fight between Thor and Hulk in Thor Ragnarok. And the way Ransom reloads his guns is absolutely taken directly from Mission Impossible Fallout, where Henry Cavill does the same thing. And there you have it. Review, references, that's all of it. Thank you so much for watching. As usual, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. You can support this channel on Patreon, and live long and prosper.